Let's go. Today I'm going to talk about Bitmagic. We're building a game platform where anyone can create games with. So it's an AI native gaming platform where essentially we create games from text prompts. But before we dive into more deeper into it, a few words about myself. I've been making games now for give or take 18 years from various roles. I started in somewhere early 2000 in QA. I have been working then throughout my career, all kinds of production, producer, and later on a game studio leadership roles. And this may be more like it wasn't maybe clear back then, but now that I look into that, I think there's a few clear learning schools for myself. And I nowadays like to look at all the opportunities more from the angle of what do I learn, what I can learn from here. So the first one, I don't know if anyone here remembers Sulake and Happo Hotel from the early 2000s. Probably not, but except me, Argo. It was one of the first. I think it actually was the first non-Japanese free-to-play service in the world. So it was before we even knew the word free-to-play, and it wasn't really necessarily called free-to-play back in the day, but it was the very first ones where you can actually play for free and then buy virtual items. And it was a great school for not just free-to-play, but also live game service. It was a virtual world for teenagers, so it was a great place to actually build something together with the community. Then I spent almost, I think it's 8 years at Electronic Arts. EA is a big global publisher. I think it was a good learning school from the point of view of kind of like how does a 10,000 people global public company work and the leadership structure there and a lot of, in a way I would hate to say, but still politics. It was more about learning of the learning like a school for the large corporation work, and from there departed to co-found Bitmagic. And for me, the big thing was there. It was more about it would be really great to actually found a company and see the very inception, the early story of a company, and see what I could learn from there. But before we move forward, actually, this announcement was made already a week and a half ago, but I don't know how many of you captured it, so I just wanted to have it here again. So, week before, we actually won a Game Changer 2025 competition. I don't know, it's not very famous public competition here in this part of the world, but it's essentially GameSpeed magazine, Lightspeed, and Nasdaq come together. And they host a startup competition, and I think there was 1,300 companies that joined into the competition, out of which 70 were shortlisted. And then there was a jury of 22 really high caliber Silicon Valley executives and people in the know there. And that jury then chose the winners in each category by blindly scoring the submissions. So for us, I think it was a really big acknowledgement of our work to see those Silicon Valley people choosing Bitmagic as a game changer and the standout winner in generative AI category for gaming. And again, really grateful for seeing that people on the other side of the globe who kind of see everything that's happening, they think that, hey, this could be the next big thing in generative AI. So super happy with the reward, but actually from here I would like to rewind and go backwards in time. So in the beginning, we were not called Bitmagic, we were actually called Rollverse, and this is now early 2022, late 2021, a group of people coming together for a fairly unique idea of how about making a real-time role-playing game with influence from tabletop RPGs. So you actually have one of the players would be playing the game master role and having a tools to adapt the game world as the other players venture in the party ventures into the adventures. So kind of this idea of we didn't even have the AI, like this was pre-ChatGPT. So it was still fairly early and we were like, there will be AI tooling and it will carry on, but we kind of like leaned into the forward. What was fairly unique, I think even back then, was that this was co-founded by 10 co-founders. So we had a very large co-founding team early on with the idea that we could essentially build a demo version or MVP of the Rollverse with the co-founding team, and only then with that go shopping and try to raise more money. We did have a pre-seed from Sisu Ventures. Sisu Ventures kind of helping also to incubate the early days for the founding the company. And let's take a little, like, I don't go too much into the detail, but with the role, here's a image from the prototype we ended up building on Unreal. So here, this is the game master view. So you could see the party playing there, and then in essence the game master could drag monsters and enemies into the game world. The idea was, although more in a sense that in paper-top RPG you can do a lot of unexpected things. What if you pull down a wall somewhere? In game world there might not be anything behind the wall, but here the idea was that the game master could react into that change and actually on fly expand the game area with a new room, and maybe there's some new characters there, or how the story could take a surprising turn. So more of, it was a game, but it was at the same time a bit of a platform. And we got, I think it was pretty nice prototype. And then we went to talk to the investors, like showing our demo and trying to shop. And I think it was like spring of 2023, we got a nice amount of investor calls. So we reached out to every single investor we could build a connection with or could intro. And almost every single investor said that this is too niche, like role-playing game, real-time with the game master, with everything. It's really niche. You need a D&D license or Dungeons & Dragons license in order to build something in RPG space. This was also before Baldur's Gate 3, so I don't think there was any recent success stories in RPG. So the investors were kind of like, is this RPG thing actually, as a genre, something that we want to invest in? And the kind of the only glimmer of hope for us, or only positive signal from the investors back then was that, hey, these AI tools that you're building for the game master, they're kind of interesting, and maybe you should explore more on that vein, and maybe there's something there too that just simplify it and find new path. And then I think followed 4-5 fairly turbulent months. We're running out of money, trying to scramble what to do. And at the time, as mentioned, there was our tech team was starting to build this technology where AI could actually quickly build a game world. So just essentially, I don't think we even at that point thought it as a prompt so much, but it was just how about if AI would actually create on-fly a simple game world based on simple instructions. And while that was happening, we were kind of leaning that, hey, actually, there could be something really interesting in a vein of what if we could have a text prompt where you describe what kind of game or game world would you like to see, and then we use the AI to actually build on-fly that game world and allow you to further refine the game. And it started to materialize, and we got really interested into it. But also from our fairly large co-founding team, a lot of people have actually joined the company for the passion for role-playing games. And that was the part we were giving up. We're like, okay, this is shifting into something beyond role-playing. So in the upcoming months, we actually went from 10 co-founders to 4 co-founders. Fairly small team. But in hindsight, I think it's a really important learning for, at least for me, is that you really want to have the people on board who are really passionate about the direction, the new journey you're taking. So at this point, making sure that we only have people on board who are really passionate about the new direction and the new vision we have for the company. And with 4 of us, we embarked into a new journey, and we coined that to be Bitmagic. And maybe now a little bit about Bitmagic and what is Bitmagic in a short term? So here's a bit of a collage from prototype. And our mission is really democratizing game creation. And what we mean with that is, what we want to achieve is that anyone could create games. So you don't need necessarily technical skills or know-how, but if you have a vision, an idea for a game, you could describe it and the AI would help you to build that game idea. One analogy we've been using is the thinking of YouTube and what YouTube did back in the day for TV production or video production, allowing new generation of content creators and a completely new universe of content to appear. If you think about, like, I don't think if you would go to TV production company and say that, hey, I have this idea of a TV show where I have a hydraulic press and I start breaking objects with that, I don't think anyone would actually be like, yeah, I'll fund that, I'll give you money for the TV show. So I think this emergent platform where community starts to create things is something we really look forward. And at the same time, making it as easy as possible. So what we often look into is like, we try to keep, and I'll show you in a little bit more in detail, but that the only interface that you have in the game is the chat interface. So we try to keep it, like, stay as far as we can, at least this point, stay as far as we can from traditional game editors or game building tools, where you have a lot of, you have panels and toggles and all those kind of sliders, to actually try to build something that, even if you don't know anything about game creation, but if you can describe your ideas, you can work with the chat interface. And we're planning to make Bitmagic a cross-platform. It's at the moment on PC. And what I think really is going to be really great on once we get on the mobile is that actually you don't necessarily even need to know how to write. If you could use the voice control to actually talk to the Bitmagic and describe the game. I don't expect there to be many people who don't know how to write creating games in Bitmagic. But again, it's the idea that the interaction should be so simple and clean that you don't need anything except your voice to actually create a game experience. And this is really our vision, is that we want to see a next, I don't call it this generation, but expanding the game creators. I think, like, if we think about gaming industry, it's still fairly dominant by middle-aged white male like myself here. And I think it's partially because of technical challenges. Game making is really hard. I think if you ever try to create a game, you know it's really hard. After 18 years, it's still really hard. So we try to remove that complexity and allowing people to experiment with the game creation, experimenting with the format without the complexity that you still get, for example, if you try to create a game experience in Roblox. It's still a very complex thing to do. There's a lot of things you need to learn. You need to know scripting languages. You need to know a lot of other things that slow and makes it a very slow process to iterate. And most of the people give up. I think there's a lot of people who would like to create games, but they don't have the stamina to go through the learning curve. How we see this landscape evolving? Here on the left-hand side, we see some fairly big companies, UCG platforms. These are some of the biggest UCG platforms in the world at the moment. The companies have from, I would say, from tens of millions to hundreds of millions monthly users. Some of these are adapting into the world, but adapting into the change. But I think, like, large language models and AI in general is a fundamental paradigm shift. It's going to affect every single industry, including UCG platforms. And I think for in the future, you really need to be able to build the AI technology at the heart of the service. In a way, what we see now from some of these bigger players is that they have a thin surface layer. So the AI, they're dipping their toes into the AI in a form of, again, maybe it helps you to find an asset, or it helps you to maybe change the texture for object, or something like a very surface level thin element on top of it. But the hypothesis for us is it's going to be extremely hard, if not impossible, for them to actually incorporate AI at the fundamental level or at the native level for this platform. And on the right-hand side, we'll see Bitmagic, and then there's some question marks. I would actually have wanted to put their competitor of ours there, but after playing through every single Gen AI gaming platform or UCG tooling that we could find our hands on, none of them actually felt that they're making it far enough. There were quite a few that were maybe like existing game creator tools or game maker tools that then have some kind of AI splash on top of it, maybe just riding the hype wave. Or then there were some new companies similar to Bitmagic, but then they lacked the whole gameplay. They didn't actually have anything but the kind of facade, or they created like, yes, there's an AI creation, yes, the AI is fairly central, but they actually lack the meat. There's not much you can do. There's not much gameplay, or it's just like creating an empty world with no life into it. So I hope we see sooner competitors, and I bet we will have a formidable competitor that I could put on a slide here, and I'm looking forward because I think that's going to be also a validation for us. But if I summarize the whole landscape, I would say that in next 3 to 5 years, there will be one or multiple billion-dollar new UCG platforms emerging. Of course, we want to be part of that competition and one of the potentials. But the reason why I say is that I think AI is going to change how UCG games are created so fundamentally, and you have to be AI native in the future, that some of the existing platforms are going to struggle to transition, and the paradigm shift will have a significant impact of the biggest platforms. But then I might be wrong. We'll see in a few years. Moving a little bit forward, I'm not going to go too much into detail about the team and individuals here. I just want to make maybe one point here. And this is also reflecting the previous slide where I saw some of the competitors, or lack of competitors, if you will, sorry. It's the idea that I think you need to have strong gaming capabilities. So game building experience, and you need to have strong AI expertise. And in order to build something in this space, you have to have both. And I feel that there's a lot of competitors of ours who are very heavily on AI side, for example. Let's say there's a group of PhDs wanting to do some kind of AI gaming thing. And then I think they are really struggling to actually build something meaningful because they lack the experience and the craftsmanship of building actual games. So you kind of have to have this, it's in a way new dimension, if you will, on game creation, that you have to have the traditional game creation skills, the craftsmanship of honing and refining experiences, and at the same time you need to have expertise on AI and the technology, and how the technology could be best used and serving the actual game experience. Because at the end of the day, what's the most important thing is the actual game experience. Like the technology has no value in itself for the player, in a sense. And that's another kind of trap I see companies sometimes falling, is that the technology itself rarely has any value. It's how you use the technology and how it allows you to have new type of experiences and something that is novel and new for the player, and not just for building a technology for the sake of technology. Yeah, moving forward, the next section, as it says, is going to be live demos. Let's see how the videos work. So what we did is that I put the question marks there mainly for the point of view that we now transition into, because I think Bitmagic is best, like, I can keep talking here, describing, but I think it's easier to understand when I actually show the game running live. So what we did is we recorded a couple of videos. These are almost all of them are one shot or the second shot. So there are, you can see that this is a production version of a game or a platform that is now, we're at the moment in Steam playtest. So there's some people get the chance to play the game on Steam, but it's still clearly, and you can see it in a moment, we are still early days in the potential of the platform, and what we often like to call is the expression power of the platform. But let's take a look how it works. So here we can see the game loading. the prompt has been mystical tropical island adventure. So this is what the user has put into the text interface in the main screen before starting to create a game. And now what we're doing is essentially AI is creating a quick background story on the game. And then here we are in the game world. Guess I don't have audio, but it's only here. And never mind, the only audio here would have been more like there's a background music that the AI is also creating for the game. But here we can see the player roaming around the game world, exploring it, and then they can start to refine the game. So this is important for us that you can explore the game while the created game, but at the same time you can start refining and telling your own story through the game. So for instance here, building a research facility with scientists, and then this is all happening on fly by the AI creating, for example, this research station and some kind of scientists, I guess. So this allows you to start modifying the world, creating your own things, and again, you can add, I guess, mystical idol could have dinosaurs. So in this case, the player is prompting there, or the creator is prompting dinosaurs, and again, they start to roam around the game world. And you can also change yourself. Well, in a way that you can also ask that, hey, I want to be a researcher. For some reason, the AI decided this is the researcher look. I'm not so convinced maybe the research look, but it gives you a glimpse. And the last thing I want to show here, or one of the last thing is actually creating objects that have behavioral attached to it. So here we are creating a bottle that should make the player's head huge. And here you can see it working. So what's interesting here is that we have there's nothing prescripted here. So all the code and the behavior is actually created on the fly by AI. So the AI is creating the code for the object, so that when the object is picked up, a behavioral change happens. And then you can keep, like again here, making the weather more mystical. And that took like, I don't know, I didn't time it, what it was, like 2 minutes, give or take. So a couple of minutes to create a game world and add objects there. And of course, here the player could have continued to refine the world further and further, adding more things into there. And then once the player is happy with the game and how it turned out to be, then they can share it with their friends and their friends can play the game. This was a single player experience. And while we've been building this and testing it with the audiences and different players, what we have learned is that quite often it's a lot of fun to create these games and game worlds and explore what you can do with the platform. But at the moment, a lot of players, then there's not that much interest maybe to play other players' games. So in this journey, fairly early on, we had this idea that besides creating games and refining games, we had it was on our backlog or roadmap maybe for year 2 or somewhere in the future of creating a game mode where 2 players could join into the same game world. And they both had the ability to prompt. And they both could start to change the game world simultaneously. And I don't know if there's any other platform doing this yet, at least in our knowledge. And we just coined a term that we call it co-prompting. Co-prompting meaning that you are both prompting at the same time, and those prompts are altering the game. And it took us quite a long time to build it, but a couple of weeks ago we released the first version on Steam that allows people to co-prompt. So let's take a quick look. So similarly here, the game world is being populated on fly. Or created on fly, so nothing is pre-made. And now there's 2 players, and the players they go to venture the world. This time we have built it's a city. The level name is Downtown Showdown, and they can start exploring again. And now the other players, I don't know how visible the chat is, but it's asking like, how do I get to the rooftops? So again, trying to explore the world more, and other players, like, again, thinking around the behavioral objects. How about if you would do actually a trampoline, and the trampoline would bounce players? Maybe that way you could get into the rooftop. So just one of the examples maybe to try experimenting, and we can see now at least player 1 made it to the rooftop. So this is where you can like create emergent gameplay in a way. Now I could easily see the players prompting more, and again maybe more trampolines, and starting to go from rooftop to a rooftop, exploring the game world further and further, and kind of creating their own narrative as they go. At the same time, like the other players now asking, how about a car race? So again, you can take this in a lot of directions. You could now go into the world and try to find cars, but of course at the same time, you just prompt things. So you can, for example, here the players start to prompt for cars, and now I think one of the players at least got a sport car. So, and now the other player, so this player is prompting a muscle car, which I guess that's kind of a muscle car or some kind of monster truck. And then essentially they could just off they go to races and race to the sunrise or sunset. I'm not sure which one is this. It's still fairly, again, early version. There are some glitches here and there, and actually this very race now ended up in a car crash, and that was the kind of the end of that session for the co-prompting session. But I just wanted to give a glimpse of kind of like what's possible with the co-prompting, and of course this is only the very early innings in a way. This is just scratching the surface of what's the potential of AI in this kind of context where you're building things together at the same time. Little bit, I'm not going to go super deep here, but if there's some more engineering people here or some people here on the stream curious, well, how does actually Bitmagic work? I'll really briefly explain. There's again prompts, so top left corner, add a trampoline. We're making a bunch of language model calls. Again, we use large language models to sanitize the prompts, again, filtering it. And then we build our own Bitmagic game definition out of the large language models. There's also, besides actual like game definitions, we also use large language models at the moment to create music and Lua code. So music is used that the AI makes the game-specific music when the game world is created. And then on the Lua code side, a little bit touched this on earlier, is the idea that actually the AI can create very specific type of code. In this case, it's written in Lua, and then that expression power can be used in the game to do logical changes, or like you saw in the couple of example demos, or other things. Well, I think again with Lua code we are having some very first early tests going around. But in the end, it's all built on Unity. Unity as a kind of 3D engine, rendering engine, but we like to feel that it's actually like we're building a game engine on top of a Unity, and that's the AI native game engine. So you have the traditional game engine, if you will, Unity as the rendering engine, and there's also physics and everything else, more traditional things. But then we wrap it with the AI framework and our AI game engine that actually then allows to do a lot of things with just user writing natural language. I think I a little bit touched upon this earlier, and I think it's really important, is that the actual character control, so how do you move, how do you interact with the world, everything around there is actually handcrafted by us game developers. So there's maybe there will be in a day future somewhere far away where AI can do some elements there, but I do think that for a very long time the craftsmanship comes there. Does it feel good? Does it feel natural? Are the controls intuitive for human? Is it human playable? Is it enjoyable? And there's a lot of craftsmanship and iterative process goes into refining those controls and making that like interaction with the game enjoyable. And I really think that that's also value for us as a platform, that if you want to create games in Bitmagic, that's a part that has been like we provide it as a platform, and we have made great feeling controls. Because I think this is also a challenge in quite a few existing UCG platforms, or especially more of a game creation tools, that you have to make your own controls. And if you have to make your own controls, it's pretty sure that they're going to suck. Unfortunately, it takes time. It's hard to make really intuitive feeling games. Briefly touching on the right hand side, there's this Vision AI Analysis and Asset Catalog, because I bet some of you are wondering how does the AI create those, for example, research stations and everything. At the moment, most of the 3D models are actually coming in a pre-existing catalog. So we have around 40,000 assets in a catalog that we call it asset catalog, and we have used Vision AI to actually build meta information around their objects. So essentially, what are the every single we haven't handwritten any information around the object. So we take a 3D object, photograph it from various angles, and then we ask AI to describe what is it seeing, what is the object, like for example, what era does it belong, for example, or is it something, and we have specific syntax for the meta information, so that when the player is saying, let's say, in the game creation prompts, make me an ancient Roman city with something and something, and you want to explore ancient Rome game. Then when the game definition is made, the AI is essentially trying to find from asset catalog what are the building blocks for this world that would match best into the ancient Roman theme. Of course, understandably, this creates fairly strict limitations on the AI's expression power. Namely that if we don't have a specific asset that you're asking for, we either find you the best alternative or we inform you we unfortunately cannot yet do it. But this is obvious limitation for the platform. And the last video I want to show you is not yet in the build. So this is not yet available on Steam. It's only in our internal demo version and in our own sandbox. And it's a first kind of glimpse and a first take into the how do we solve the problem of limited asset catalog and the challenge with expression power. So here again, game world is created. This time we go into ancient, some kind of ancient Roman, ancient Egypt, sorry. And now here we have a very special, this is not normal text prompt, it's a specific command of creating a Tutankhamun. And what happened here is actually we are creating a 3D character on fly. So we're building a pipeline where text prompt can be turned into a 3D character. Okay, there's a Tutankhamun. And then actually it's also rigged on fly. So again, you can see that it's not perfect yet, maybe far from perfect, but it's a glimpse of potential for creating 3D objects, and this didn't take very long time. It's like 10-15 seconds to create a 3D character from the text prompt, and then rig it and animate it. And we of course hope to get it to front of our players in not so distant future. Again, here's the marshmallow guy. Yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, you can still see that there's some work to be done, but it's also fairly flexible. So in this case, let's push it a little bit further. Again, like how's the expression power? What can it do? So here, and we can also see the player thinking for a while, timid looking of what? It's going to be a penguin wearing a red hat, a red woolen cap, and then let's add still a scarf. So you can start defining fairly like detailed descriptions of what you would like to see in your game world as a character. And now we can see how the AI takes time. And I think it turned out pretty well, considering that this was all created from a text prompt with AI and not using any like there was no steps in between that would not have been automatic. So this is a little bit of a glimpse of what's coming in Bitmagic in the future, or what we're building, and we're super excited about the potential of actually combining these two in a sense that we will have a pre-made assets for sure for a long time. And one thing I forgot to mention, the asset catalog we have at the moment, they're all licensed assets. So we license a big bunch of assets that we use for this game world creation to get going. And now we explore more and more how could we weave into the actual AI creating assets on fly, or allowing players to be more precise, creating their own assets and creating ultimately we're on a journey to expanding the expression power of the player. So that the expression power is still limited, but we have clear path of that expanding for years to come. I'll wrap it up mentioning that if you are curious, if you'd like to test out Bitmagic, it's available on Steam. So on Steam you can request to access. We let in every couple of weeks a new build, and then we let in a group of users in at the same go. If you don't want to wait and you're really impassionate to try out Bitmagic, that's also possible. You can just ping me on for example, LinkedIn, and I can drop out Steam key if someone wants to try. That's also possible. But again, what I feel is that this is like, sometimes when we're building on day-to-day work, we feel that we are half a year in the future. So this is like a sneak peek into what future AI native UCG platforms could look like. And we're building that future now. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Markus. That was fantastic. Like a year ago, when we had Jussi Kemppainen talking about his pipeline with Gen AI, there was very little of these cases. And now there's more of this, like in a very fast pace that we see these things. What are you expecting to have in the next year of competitors?
It's hard to say. I know there's a couple of different schools how to approach the same problem. I know that there are a few companies who at least say they have nothing yet out, but they're building an actual foundational language model around game design and trying to have an AI to create games from a kind of like language model point of view. I think that's going to be 3 to 5 years out at least. I'm fairly skeptical that anything will materialize from there anytime soon. But then within a year, I'm really eager to see what's going to happen in this type of, where you combine kind of like traditional game development and AI and merge them into a new type of experiences. That's maybe where I see most progress. And then of course there's a third interesting vein. Again, maybe the year is a little bit too short, but it's actualities where you create video frames. So again, essentially the game creation is happening on fly with what's the company? I'm blacking out the name. Anyway, there's one which is working now with Minecraft, that you can do Minecraft experiences on fly that is actually image generated. But when you try it out, it's pretty far out still. It doesn't really remember the world and it keeps glitching. But that's the third. So I think there's 3 different vectors, and I think this type of combining large language models and traditional game development is one where we can see. I'm most looking forward, especially if you try to keep some like very coherent, smaller experience, could be really interesting there.
Yeah. So again, if the audience has a question, please raise your hand and a mic will be brought to you. There's a first question coming in. So please stand up for giving the question.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for the talk. My question is, you mentioned that when you look at the competitors and you kind of talked about how they lacked perhaps like real depth in terms of gameplay and stuff like that. How are you going to ensure that Bitmagic isn't going to be just a toy box full of like shallow random things without any coherence and actually like things with depth. And I guess that's my kind of interest or kind of skepticism.
I think it's a fantastic question, and it's fair to ask, and it's something we ask ourselves, of course. And I think the key is, I mean, I think it's a balancing act in a sense that a lot of these, and in our vision, it's the game creators creating their own experiences. So then it's our mission as a platform is to allow the tools to be such that you can actually create a cohesive experience. So in a way that the game creator, if they has a vision that I want to do a very specific feeling game or a game with a very specific atmosphere, that our platform has enough expression power that they can do something that is actually coherent and cohesive from end to end as an experience. And of course, this game experience in the beginning will be fairly short and they will be fairly shallow, that's for sure. It's not like that, create me a next Red Dead Redemption or like some other big AAA game and off goes AI and it creates you a emergent world with the story and narrative and everything. So I think it's best still to think it more around, this is a new type of tool for creators. And then our mission is that the tools are good enough for the creators to express themselves. I hope that helps you answer.
In the closed beta, do you have like can you prompt for an interaction between the objects? How does that work?
It's still fairly limited, and it's not yet in the build, but literally this current milestone our team is working. We are doing a first version where you can start doing in-world objects with the game stage or goal stage. So you can actually start doing more of a basic quest structures within the game world that is shared with other players that they can then complete and play. So yes, even in our case, we're not yet super happy how far you can push the game objectives and mission style. I think there's a lot of groundwork there to be still done, but the very basic structures start to be placed.
What is the biggest challenge in the interaction then? Like, how do you tackle that?
If you mean about the quests and the I think because of course there's a multiple very hairy problems that we haven't yet fully solved. For example, it can get fairly complex. So if the quest has a lot of chaining or if it forks or any other, however the quest structure would be built, then how do we make it very easy for the players to change it and refine it? Or if you change what kind of changes we allow to the game world after the quest, for example, is created. We're exploring a lot around this in single player environment, where it's we decided that the game topology and the game world, once the quests have to be created at the same time with the game world, and we limited the quest expression power during the session for the reason, or similarly actually not just the quest but actually the game world, that the game world cannot be fundamentally changed once it's being created, that you have to start again, if you will, because otherwise it's the kind of how to build easy to use interactive tools to manage something as complex as a let's say quest chain.
But now you have the community to start with simple, and then they get a bit more complex, like any other platforms, right?
Yes, and I think one I did maybe not mention in the presentation, but I think one important thing I would encourage everyone is start with something simple, build something, and that's I think with a lot of our competitors too. I feel that maybe they're building something, but they haven't really released anything in a year or year and a half. For us, it's really important. We build with the community. So we launch early, we launch often, and then we build together with the community, because that's the only way to kind of one actual maybe single point here is that this is no new that there is no design patterns. There is no design patterns how you interact with the game, how do you create a game experience or anything like this. So when you have no design patterns or no past examples or anything, you just have to iterate. Just get something live, see how the user are using it, learn and keep repeating. And I think this is the only way to build something if you're building something completely new.
Yeah, fair enough. Was there another question in the audience? There's one question in the chat which is slightly technical. So how is game performance taken into account with AI game makers such as Bitmagic? So for example, what if the AI creates poor code that drops the frames per second of the game?
It's a really good question. I think, first of all, we try to make things not too difficult for ourselves from the limitation. So the game worlds are at the moment defined 1 square kilometer. So the game world size is not like anything like crazy big. Also in the code prompting, we limit it at the moment to 10 players. So there's only 10 players can join the same game world. Again, from performance point of view, to keep it a little bit more simpler for the AI. But of course, for the code creation, then that is really all about how do we instruct AI and how do we use AI to validate that the code it created is actually coherent and can work in a way that that's the the other parts of the game. Actually, we prefer that the AI is hallucinating. Like, we don't mind if AI is hallucinating, that it doesn't exactly create what you necessarily wanted or something unexpected happened. It creates emergent and kinds of fun things. But of course, when AI is writing code, you don't want it to hallucinate, because then, of course, very, very unexpected things will happen. So there we are having more strict validation process to make sure that the code logic is intact and there's no craziness there.
So just to reiterate, how long Bitmagic itself has been in the development? How long you are in this now?
So we started Bitmagic a year ago summer. So summer of 23, we kind of pivoted into the Bitmagic. We got some glimpses and bits and pieces. Of course, if someone paid attention, in the Rollverse version was built on Unreal. So we pivoted the engine while we pivoted everything else. So we got some bits and pieces from the Unreal prototype to be used, but in a sense, we rewrite everything since last summer, or a year ago summer. Yeah, so what's that, like 15 months?
Yeah. So basically, how long you have been open with basically with the closed beta? So, and what are the main lessons so far?
It's a really good question. We've been on a journey. With the very first version we let our users try was already end of last year. So quite a few months. But then it was really fast, got something to life, but of course it's really poor in many sense. And then this year, I think the big learning for us is, like any UCG platform, it's hard to build traction. It's hard to get things rolling. So in a beginning, there's a lot of chicken and egg problems, or there's a really good book written called Gold Star Problem. So in a way, for us, the journey has taken us from a single player game to a multiplayer game, to a now more of a sandbox where people can co-create in a sandbox. And this has been largely driven by the learnings from those different phases. But I think it's important that we could not have, at the same time, I remind everyone, like, I think it would have been absolute failure if we would have, even if we would know now what we knew. Like, if you start with the multiplayer co-creation, I don't think it would have taken so long time to actually validate anything and learn anything, that you have to build it from simple to more complex and take the learnings with the one step at a time.
Yeah. And unless there's a question from the audience, well, there is one now. Let's get that question. So here, Mike. And I'll have a final question then after this, and then we'll move to the lunch break.
Yeah, I was wondering if you have any insights on how fast the 3D generation is gonna, because it still looks a bit funny. So I was wondering, like, when it's gonna be good enough to actually be.
So
date.
Yes, and I'll give you some pointers. I don't think I necessarily have a date, but I mean, so if we take one step backwards, we would have wanted to use a third-party solution. So last spring we went to look into all third-party 3D model generation tools or platforms or whatever we could use, and there were broadly two categories of challenges. One was the quality, kind of you also leaned, and the second was time. So there are some tools that can have decent quality already now, but it takes, I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes per model. So maybe if you're working more, like in our case, you cannot have the player to wait 10, 15 minutes for something to appear. You have to have it really snappy. So, but in other context, maybe that could be already, that maybe there is already tools that you can already use that have good enough quality, but then it just means that it's going to be slow process of someone manually creating them. Or in our case, because we wanted to have decent quality and fast, we just have to build it ourselves from ground up. And yeah, you can see that it's not perfect by any means yet, and upcoming weeks and months we keep iterating and refining it further.
Thank you.
So
Thank you for the question. A final one would be that how does it feel like the game industry has been changing and you've been part of a lot of these changes that we've had so far. But this trend of generative AI is just moving really fast. So how does it feel like to be on that boat that is kind of with the waves that keeps on kind of going and things can change in a couple of months? Like, how do you prepare for these potential changes?
It's a super good question and something we ponder almost every single day. And the answer for us is, and maybe it's part of our culture, but we try to keep all of our plans fairly loose. So we work in 2-week sprints and 2-week iterations. And on a larger level, our CEO writes, I think like 4 or 5 times a year, an updated vision document. And then from there we build a loose roadmap. But we always try to keep it in the sense that like, this is where we're heading, and then a lot of things move around, and we adapt to those changes as quickly as we can. Because I think that's one of the only benefits as a small company compared to all others is the speed of execution and the speed of reaction into changes. So if we see an interesting white paper appearing next week, like let's say this week, in a couple of weeks, we can take that white paper and start, how does it actually change our current understanding of AI's capabilities, and how could we in a way, how could we use it in our context? So I think what you have to be is very comfortable with the uncertainty and constantly open mind for things to change and plans to change and react. But I mean, I've said this before, but I mean, I've never seen technology changing so fast as now. So of course, at the same time, it's a little bit daunting that you don't really have a lot of how to say, concrete foundation underneath you.
Yeah,
you constantly feel that you're a little bit on sifting ground and in a way in
quicksand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Thank you, Markus, so much. There's so many more questions to ask, and we'll just keep on following your work and see how it goes with Bitmagic. So thank you.
Super. Thank you. Cheers.